We are back, not following the result that we wanted for the game against Ole Miss, but nonetheless, dogs through and through. They kept fighting through. We're going to keep fighting through because there's a lot of good news moving forward to the 2026 season. I am Keegan, and my co-host is Cheeto, and we are back. This is Dogs Off the Leash.
I do it for the dogs. Do it for the dogs. Do it for the dogs. I do it for the dogs.
Wah, wah, wah.
Not a great way to end the season. It's been a few days now, so I think most of Dog Nation has had time to sit and think about, again, what was a good season, but also what could have been, right? I'm sitting here watching the highlights of the Ole Miss game, and that's just not a game that Georgia loses very often. You have a defensive touchdown. You scored 34 points. The other team doesn't have their head coach. You're the most talented team on the field. I don't know, Keegan, as far as the keys to this game or the reason that we lost, what is it that's kind of sticking with you now that we've had a few days to sit on this? How does Georgia fall short in a Sugar Bowl, a place that we're very comfortable, where we lost last year to a better Notre Dame team, underhanded at quarterback? I felt like we were healthier. I felt like we were the better all-around team. How you feeling?
Yeah, it just sucks losing. I mean, obviously, Georgia, we were all hopeful to get a third natty in 5 years, to be as obnoxious as ever, and a lot of that was on the table for Georgia. We had plenty of reasons to be realistically optimistic, but Ole Miss was a team that had clearly put us on the ropes more so than any team throughout the season, and I think the game plan wasn't terrible going into this game. We didn't necessarily always set ourselves up for the most success, and then at times, Ole Miss just wanted it more and outplayed us. So it was a mix of things, but I feel great about this Georgia season, especially considering that we became SEC champions because of very crucial moments and extremely clutch plays where the margin of victory was like razor thin, including that fourth down play versus Tennessee, even the way things went the first go against Ole Miss. And then to be able to flip the script and eventually beat Bama. This team toiled. We won in the championship rounds oftentimes, and it wasn't without lots of fight and the ball just bouncing our way in particular moments. So this was a really exciting season, a highly entertaining season, and we went pretty far and became back-to-back SEC champions despite it being very close to not going that way. So even though as a Georgia fan, of course I wanted to go further, you could easily argue that this season would not have even had a chance to make it to an SEC championship for a second time if it weren't for a handful of plays. So
it's apparent that college football's changed now. And Kirby's been talking to the media about some different things. And one thing that he keeps pointing out is, for the past 2 years, and to this team's credit, we're back-to-back SEC champions, right? That's a really hard thing to do, even with this modern NIL era. But Kirby talks about getting the best out of the team that you have for that year. Last year and the year before, we dealt with some injuries towards the end of the season. We had the Gunnar Stockton sub in for Carson. I really feel like this team had more. I really do. I felt like we were healthy this year. This offensive line and this running game were better than what Ole Miss could have stopped. Our weapons, Zachariah Branch, Colby Young coming back, Noah Thomas, who didn't see a whole lot of action in the Sugar Bowl, didn't really feel like. All of our wide receivers, all of our skill weapons. Dylan Bell. Where I'm kind of sitting right now, and this is not to throw shade at Bobo, but again, going back to that article that I wrote, could he win us the championship? What it's kind of looking like right now, and I don't know when we stopped being able to criticize people that we support, teams that we follow. It's like family, right? You know, when you criticize people in your family, usually it's for their well-being, right? Because you love them, because you know them, that you can give them some good feedback, right? But these days you're called a hater. But kind of what it's starting to look like, and I'm not going to put this all on Bobo. I'm going to put this on Glenn Schumann as well. I think Mike Bobo is an elite quarterback coach, but an above-average offensive coordinator. in clutch moments. He had a great season this season. I want to give him all the credit for that. Great season this season, some spectacular moments. But in this game, it looked like either he schemed some people open and Gunner didn't find him or didn't throw it to a lot of open guys, which, again, falls on the offensive coordinator. Or there were times where the scheme didn't feel really good and Gunner just made plays, scrambling out of the pocket, taking massive hits while finding random people open on the sideline. So it was a mixed bag. And then on the defense, we had some busts that were just very uncharacteristic. Trinidad Chambliss deserves a lot of credit for what he did. He was amazing. And again, to Glenn Schumann's credit, an elite linebacker coach, but an above-average defensive coordinator. I'm getting to the point to where we're kind of running out of excuses. Again, this wasn't Ohio State. This wasn't Alabama that we lost to, like teams that like we had to fight to be better than. This is Ole Miss without a head coach, essentially. To lose to that squad over there, being up at half, it just wasn't great. We had a fourth down conversion that went really well. We had another fourth down conversion that was out of pure desperation. And when Kirby called that, you felt like, I'm not really confident that we can get in scoring position. We were in the red zone to end the game, and we come away with a field goal after having first and goal. Like, that can't happen. Right. That absolutely can't happen. So it's just, like Kirby said, this one hurts. But it hurts the most because we should have won this game. There's not many times where you're going to see Georgia lose this type of game. And it's not the end of the world, but it's just, again, it's just why are we not clutch in the way that we used to be in a lot of these moments? And you got to ask yourself the question. You can blame it on whatever, you can describe it away, but I don't know. There was a lot left to be desired, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think Ole Miss, first off, deserves the credit because they had a much better season, really over Alabama and Ohio State. Ole Miss is looking at a historic team, probably the best team they might have ever had. They had us on the ropes, and Trinidad Chambliss played lights out despite whatever we could do. So I think it's a mix of things. I think the most disappointing part you touched on is that we clearly won the first half. We're up 21-12, and then basically we blow it. There's really no other way to put it.
And let me say this too, because I think that's part of the problem why I'm struggling so much. If this Ole Miss team was like that one, they had to vacate all those losses because they had, what's his name, Kindichi on the defensive line and all those players, that team was a juggernaut. This Ole Miss team is not that team. I don't see it. Trinidad's great, but their lines of scrimmage, their weapons, even that Jackson Dart year, that team would drag this team, in my opinion. If this were a super team, I'd feel better. And I want to say, because I know we've had this conversation of late in Dog Nation and on this podcast, we had that back-to-back year. That was amazing, those two championships. But the dynasty talk right now for the University of Georgia, I think, needs to end. It's we haven't maintained that high level. Sometimes due to injury, but sometimes just getting beat by a team that you're better than. No more dynasty talk for me for quite some time because we're just not that. I don't know what exactly we're missing, but we're not that right now.
Yeah, and that's okay for me, honestly. Like, I want to be a dynasty team, don't get me wrong, but that's shooting for the stars and ending up in the clouds, right? Like, no one's a dynasty right now. No team is a dynasty right now. Ohio State could have been a two-peater. They're not a two-peater. Any year you can buy enough transfers to go for a run if it's the right transfers. Now, it really boils down to, Cheeto, 3 teams spend $5 million in the portal, or better yet, that's not shit. 3 teams spend $35 million in the portal. Which one of the teams goes furthest? It's the team that had a better roster to begin with and who won the evaluation in just the per dollar spend value that is the production the year following. There's no guarantee that just because you spend the money does it work. You could spend, you can give Wagyu to a fry cook and they might not know exactly how to cook it, right? So it's a lot of things that have to come together. You can't just necessarily buy your way in, but you can definitely open more doors, get more opportunity. Georgia had the roster. I don't think Georgia not spending enough money is the reason we didn't go far enough. Indiana is the complete answer as to why you can look at production around college football, put a team together based on that, spend a ton of money still. Indiana's still a top spender, but they're getting way more for their dollar on a production basis.
So
And they're doing some things
where's
that-
Georgia lacking? Because when you look at Indiana, transfer portal, yes, they've had success, but their recruiting, I think they're down in the 70s as far as classes go. So where does Georgia lack? Where did Georgia fall short?
To me, Georgia fell short in critical moments in the game, and I think that's really what it boils down to. I think maybe it was Pete Golding recently, whoever said it, but whoever said it, I wish I could give exact credit. I think it was Pete Golding. But he said sometimes you win because of things, and you also win despite of some things. And looking back on the first time we beat Ole Miss, I said that Gunner had some great highlights, but a lot of those highlights were despite the offensive line having pass protection breakdown. And then he bails us out. Gunner isn't always going to be able to do that. Like Michael Vick couldn't always bail you out every time. He could do it sometimes. And funny enough, Trinidad Chambliss had plays break down where it didn't go his way. Balls got batted down. Dalen Everett makes the play in the last part of the fourth quarter because this time Dalen Everett's really close. He almost gets an interception in the clutch moment. Doesn't happen. But the last game, Dalen Everett, if y'all remember, had a very clutch pass breakup. So you can't expect Dalen Everett to always bail you out. You can't expect Gunnar Stockton to always bail you out. This time, Trinidad Chambliss was able to step up and bail his team out, but last time he couldn't. So I think it just goes down to critical moments. What I don't love is just some of the on-paper concepts, and I think this is where Mike Bobo deserves the most criticism. But first, let me start with saying that Mike Bobo, I think, is a really good offensive coordinator. He didn't do it alone. Him and his staff put together an excellent slate of plays. Some of it's only going to go as far as your quarterback lets you take it. And there was like 3 clear plays where Gunnar Stockton is the hero on the play, and we don't move the ball forward if it's not for Gunnar Stockton balling out of control, right? And I love that. I love Gunnar. I love that he's the warrior quarterback. He's willing to dive. If you see our post, we're constantly hyping up Gunnar. As a football player, I love a quarterback who wants to lay a lick and take a hit, right? But it sells a lot better in the marketing department than consistently on the field if your quarterback only does that and can't see the field at a B+ to, A level at like a majority of the clip. And Zachariah Branch just broke the receptions record, 81 receptions in total. Shout out Zach Branch, DGD. But he did it under 1,000 yards, right? He had 81 receptions at about 800 yards. And that kind of speaks to the short to mid game that we've done really well with. But when defenses know that's all you got,
Absolutely.
and you've only thrown it down the field, albeit clutch moments, right? But a handful of times all season, they're going to make you beat them over the top because you've shown that you can do it, but you're not really that willing to do it.
As I was watching the game, that was something that was very, very noticeable. Whether it was 3rd and long or whatever, when we needed a big play, again, it was either Gunnar being a hero or Bobo going to the screen game, which has been very effective for us and even was a couple times in the game. I don't love how we don't push the ball down the field enough, right? Imagine how good your short game will be if you are a threat vertically. I don't know the reluctance of Bobo to do it. Is it just Gunnar can't make the throw or we don't have the weapons? We've seen him. He's pretty good with the deep ball. He's not great with the intermediate ball, and we have plenty of weapons. But there was a drive when we were starting to get desperate to where we started throwing the ball down the field. We got a pass interference. We got a holding call in the end zone, 1st and goal. Sometimes just throwing the ball down the field will get you that. But if you're not going to throw the ball, you're not going to get those types of calls. So and again, Bobo's been better through the course of the year. But when the clutch comes, it's like he reverts back to old Bobo. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, throw the ball down the field. Be aggressive. Even if it's picked off way down the field, it's essentially a punt. We don't have to settle for these fake punts on 4th. So you make a great point there. It's really hard to criticize after the year that Bobo had. It's just that championship question. And again, it was more than just him. But I saw the same thing that you saw with the vertical game, and it it really just leaves you wanting more, man. Football is, you've got to take shots just to get the defense to respect you. So I'm not really sure where the reluctancy is coming from there.
Yeah, I think they are partly playing it safe, and they're partly playing it safe because.
But you can't do that when you're trying to win a title, bro. You gotta go. You play to win, not to lose. You know what I'm saying? That mentality has been the definition of our offense in some years when we've been upset about it. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. And then I think there's, on the one hand, it's like you guys are being wusses and not being aggressive enough. And then on the other hand, I think Gunner clearly needs to develop more. But guess what? I don't know if it necessarily happens unless you're taking those chances down the field in games. Like, where do you gain that confidence? In practice? Like, you got to do a little bit of both. Like, I understand the thinking to some extent. But, Cheeto, there were several plays where.
And there were a couple opportunities where Zachariah Branch is downfield open, throwing his hands up in the air, throwing it to me. So, again, some of the time Gunner's not seeing it or choosing not to throw it, to Bobo's credit. I will say I saw that a couple times, especially on the replay.
Yeah, that was the most glaring. But I'll say that Gunner Stockton has had 20 plays this season where if you're quarterback and you pass enough, there's probably 5 or 6 plays a game easy where guys are open you're not passing to. That's just going to happen. But there are probably 20 plays this season where if Gunner Stockton were sitting here with us right now, he'd be like, yeah, guys, I left one of them on the field. Like, he's going to feel it because you can only pass the ball one time to one receiver, so you're not always going to hit everyone who's open every play. That would be absurd. But there were some obvious ones, and let's just say that there's 20. Well, if Gunner gets 10 of those in 2026 back, if he can cut that number down in half, we're talking about game-changing plays, right? These moments add up. I just mentioned how Georgia, by the skin of our teeth, became back-to-back SEC champions. But even in our back-to-back run, it took Ohio State missing a field goal. It took Missouri kind of shit in the bed in a close one. Even this season, it took Tennessee missing a field goal. We have a tendency to overhype the glory days and not admit the margins. Even Ole Miss this week, they're saying they beat us belt to ass. Well, it was like a 4-point game or something, right?
Right.
So I think there's just a tendency to over-glorify the wins, over-analyze, and detract from the losses. But if Gunner gets a little bit better at seeing the field, if he gets half of those 20 obvious ones where even he's sitting here with us right now and being like, yeah, guys, I really should have got that one, that's all it's going to take. And I think Georgia can make that progression. But I wanted to talk about a couple of plays, and One thing in general I'll say is Gunner, yeah, he's having heroic, awesome plays, but why do we need Gunner to be playing hero so much? Like, why is it 3rd and long, 4th and... Okay, I gotta make this point, Cheeto, because it's important. So, if you go watch the first game, 3 things we did really well is we ran power run at a high level. We had Dylan Bell be a big part of the game, faking the reverse, handing off the reverse, throwing it deep to him, and the tight end was a pivotal part of the game. Lawson Lucky has 3 touchdowns. Lots of guys involved in the tight end room in that game. We don't do as much of any of that in this game. So the things that got you a win the first go, power run, Dylan Bell, tight end. We only throw it to the tight end twice. Dylan Bell hardly gets any looks. And a lot of these run concepts they were able to blow up. We're doing these slow-moving, pulling concepts where guards, tight ends, whoever the fuck isn't getting a hat on a hat nearly quick enough. So we talked about the one thing that Ole Miss did really well on the defensive line was not their ability to outpower us, but to have finesse. So when we got these slower developing run concepts, guys are clearly not lined up. Like, Cheeto, it's pre-snap offense. I'm a guard. You're a running back. You're looking at the front 7 of the defense, and hey, I think I'm going to have some space right here just by how we were lined up. Or I know, I think I'm about to have to go second level because I don't got a guy in front of me, so I'm going to have to hit a linebacker. Just the way we were lined up in some of these run situations, from the get isn't going to work on paper. I'm looking at an uneven front, and it's just not going to line up right. So that was just one thing I thought that really did fall on Mike Bobo. Anyway, so we did power run really well the first go against Ole Miss. We didn't do so hot of it this time, and I think just some of the calls weren't good. We had bodies moving way too slow to get on blocks, and we just weren't able to do it. So I think that's something that really does fall on a schematics issue. We should have been running more power. When you're on the 3-yard line, not having Josh McCray in, to me, is not good. So you got Bowens in, and then you got this slow developing pulling play that is completely blown up because Ole Miss is in a goal line defense with way too many bodies to where if you draw it up on the chalkboard, it's just uneven and you're not going to have enough hats on hats to be able to lay blocks. So there were things like that I just felt were terrible. You could have ran the clock down, tied it, and then given Ole Miss no time, but instead you throw it, you stop the clock, you give them a minute to score, and then you have a safety not lined up over the top properly. I think it was Zion Branch, who also was out of alignment on a Ole Miss running touchdown. So I think we just got to be a little bit sharper in the X's and O's in those departments. Like, I didn't think we played a terrible game defensively, but when you give someone like Trinidad Chambliss that many chances and he's on a heater, you're just asking for trouble, and he was able to take advantage of us. So give credit to Ole Miss and I guess take some points away from us not playing to our strengths a little bit more. So all in all, dude, I think this season was a success. I would have liked to have seen Georgia go further, obviously, but this team is young, and I think that the experience that we bring back next year could be pivotal in making a deeper run. And yeah, it was an exciting, very entertaining, fire, passion, and energy-led season with some memorable dogs. And shout out to the 4-year guys like Brett Thorson, Cash Jones, Oscar Delp, Dylan Bell.
The silver lining, and a real silver lining, even though I really felt like this Georgia team should have went further, had the opportunity to go further, and opportunity was wasted, this was a really young team, right? And we know that as disappointing as this season was, Kirby's not going to stop. Kirby's not going to rest. They're already looking to bring in guys in. We're already having some announcements. Christian Miller off to the NFL, CJ Allen off to the NFL, a host of seniors who have been a major part of a lot of the success here. Keegan, you mentioned a few of them. Well, as we roll into the offseason, guys, the schedule will change a little bit, but football season doesn't stop in Athens. It doesn't stop for Georgia. But we will try to keep you guys updated as any major news breaks. Obviously, right now, we're waiting for the portal window to close. I think that's going to close officially somewhere between the 8th and the 16th. I know ours is a little bit different because we played a little bit longer than some teams, so we'll keep you updated on that. You guys make sure that you follow our Dogs Off the Leash social media pages on Twitter and on Instagram and TikTok, where Keegan is doing a lot of work putting out bangers for you guys. Make sure that you hop in on the podcast wherever you listen, whether that's on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And as always, guys, another great season. Next year's going to be better, and you know what it is. Off the leash.
I do it for the dogs.